All right. And the team's going to make sure that goes out. What's up, everyone on Facebook group, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Twitter, on both Twitters. We're on the Twitter for the podcast as well as the iSocial fans Twitter. We got Spottie with us today, so we're going to jump in. As always, this is a live podcast recording, so I will see your comments on the side, so feel free to comment, share your thoughts, share your takes. I won't bring them onto the screen just because we're doing this for some of that video. If you have to leave and jump early, this will be live on YouTube. It will be episode, oh man, I can't remember. I think it's Saturday's episode. This will be Saturday's episode. So it'll be, I believe that's episode 253 or 254, 254. There we go. The team in the background sound me. So this will be episode 254 of the podcast. So I'm going to get started. Spottie, I'm going to send you back and then I'll pull you up.
Cool.
All right. Welcome back to another episode of NFT 365. We are sponsored and brought to you by the Crypto Business Conference. If you are a marketer, if you are a creator, you are a small business owner, this is the conference for you to get to know, to level up your knowledge of all things Web3 and, of course, NFTs. And, part of the thing with the podcast, not only are we buying an NFT every single day, but been really trying my best, each day to push the limits of what NFTs we're buying, what are the collections look like. And as most of you know, for this month, we've been featuring, different NFTs that we've been buying. And today we're going to go back into the back machine real quick and pull in, before we pull in our guest, and we're going to pull in, just kind of the idea of what this, one that we actually minted for our collection. And so the one we minted for our collection back on, this would be number 226. So number 226 out of our 365. Back on June 26th, we actually minted the Spottie WiFi's Ape Tape, and we have that music one. It's now our third music NFT that was part of our collection. We have Sammy Arriaga, who of course was one of our past guests on the podcast. We have Violetta and her NFT drop that was on the that we had as one of our collection, and then we brought in Spottie's one. And I had the pleasure to get to see Spottie in person at NFT.NYC. This is actually the second time we got to kind of make all those worlds happen. And beyond just the fact that we got to mint the NFT, we actually even have to take it a step further, and we get to actually bring Spottie into the to the podcast. So Spottie, thanks so much for joining as a guest. Really, love, since I got into this space, you have your reputation precedes you, my friend, as a leader in NFTs, really driving forward in the music space, but also, all around just great human in this space. So thanks for jumping in. Tell the people a little bit about who you are, what you're all about, and we'll jump into some questions.
Hey, man, thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be here. I go by the name of Spottie WiFi, the best and only CryptoPunk rapper alive. But basically, I'm a recording artist, songwriter, performer. I bought a CryptoPunk back in February of last year, 2021. And very quickly, I decided to make a musical project around my CryptoPunk, give my CryptoPunk a name, Spottie WiFi, give them a backstory, and then use music to tell that backstory. So I recorded a concept album called I'm Spottie, which I released in August of 2021 as an NFT, and it did well. We had some different elements of the NFT drop that were pretty innovative, and it sold out right away. And ever since then, it's been sort of a life-changing experience where I'm sort of a case study for music NFTs and the 1,000 fan theory, the idea that you don't need millions of fans, you need hundreds or 1,000 fans.
Well, that's been, I talk about that, the 1,000 True Fan essay by Kevin Cruz on a regular basis. I still think it's one of the coolest concepts. It was written originally in 2008, before, social media and any of this world kind of exists. And it is, to me, the premise of what really, Web3 can empower and kind of take forward. I love to tap a little bit into that like early journey, and just for context for our listeners as well, this guy that many of you might have heard of, maybe some of you might have heard of, by the name of Snoopdog, who happens to be a diehard Steeler fan. So extra love for Snoop. Snoop gave Spottie a really cool shout out, and I got to go back and listen to that. And even just, I mean, not only the appreciation he has for you, as a musician, as NFT, and your advice, I thought that was like a really cool little piece of him to do. Of course, many of the celebrities that are jumping in the space kind of all in, and he's definitely one of them. But I wonder, you mentioned you bought the CryptoPunk early. Talk to me about how did you discover NFTs? Like, what was your entry point in there? Because not only did you buy one, but you've kind of embraced it all in with the brand as well.
Yeah, so I was into crypto back in late 2017. That was when I first started buying crypto. I actually bought right before the big crash of late 2017. So I had really bad timing getting into crypto, but I just stayed in. I never sold through the whole bear market, 2018, 2019. So by 2020, the prices of these cryptos that I had accumulated started rising, and they were finally worth something. And at the same time, I was working a day job and lost that day job due to COVID. So I started hearing about NBA Top Shot in January of 2021. That was like my gateway to NFTs, which is the same for a lot of people. So January of last year, I started collecting NBA Top Shot moments. And then through Top Shot, that's how I met collectors that owned CryptoPunks. There were people, a few people in particular, that were in the NBA Top Shot world and also had been collecting CryptoPunks back in 2020. So by February, I'm meeting these people. I'm seeing Mark Cuban on YouTube talking about CryptoPunks. He's saying they're priceless. They're the rookie card of NFTs. And my crypto that I've been accumulating is finally worth something. So that's when I decided, I basically was just thinking, I'm going to take some of this crypto that I have and I'm going to diversify and try this other thing. So that was sort of the journey. And then February 23rd is when I purchased my CryptoPunk number 5528.
Nice. Okay. So, one of the questions I've always had, right? There's a lot of people that are, that will be like, oh, it must be nice to be early and be aware of punks, or, be early and get aboard Ape. But the thing I always push back on people is like, let's be real. A majority of people would have sold 3,000 times over that time period as things kind of fluctuated. But I feel like those that kind of embraced that, those early ones as part of their brand almost kind of became, hodlers as a whole. What were your thoughts before you kind of made, or was it initially like, hey, I'm gonna make this part of the, my brand, or what was your thoughts kind of like leading into making that, such, because like literally when I see that CryptoPunk anywhere or one that's similar, I immediately think of you. And I think that is, brand recognition that, many brands would pay 10 years worth of, marketing for. Talk to me a little bit about that period between buying it and then turning it into part of your brand.
So I knew it was going to be part of my brand. At that time, I was actually hosting a YouTube show with a couple friends of mine where we would just talk about NFTs and interview artists, interview collectors. And so I saw the value of having a CryptoPunk as my Twitter avatar or my face on the YouTube show, things like that. I saw that value pretty early, and I was definitely thinking of my CryptoPunk as a long-term hold. Like, I was not thinking short term or medium term at all. I was thinking this is like at least a 20-year play. This is like in my part of my retirement, plan is to own a CryptoPunk. And then from there, as I started using the CryptoPunk to represent me, I was still using my given name, my legal name, using my old Twitter handle and things like that, but using my CryptoPunk. And that's when I started to see like, okay, I'm getting more followers quickly now because I have this CryptoPunk and people are interested in what I have to say. And they don't even know, my background. They don't know if I have any expertise or anything. In fact, most of the CryptoPunks are anonymous. Right. So that's when I said, as a musician, this is super interesting because, you're always trying to figure out how can I get people to listen to my music, as a musician. And that's when I decided I want to do something. CryptoPunks are already historic, right? But I want to make mine even more historic than the rest of the pack. And that's when I decided I think I can do something nobody's done before if I make my CryptoPunk a rapper, because I can rap, but it'll be more interesting if I do something and actually use the identity of my CryptoPunk. So that was pretty much the genesis of it. I bought my CryptoPunk on February 23rd. I started having this thought process over a couple weeks, and by April, mid-April, I put out the first song. I'm Spottie.
Wow, mid-April. Wow, that, I mean, that's pretty wild, and that's early, and that's that is pretty impressive on that side. You mentioned with your day job and kind of where you're at now, go back, when you were in collecting crypto, you're in the crypto side of the house. Did you envision a Web3 full-time world, or was that like, hey, NFTs kind of opened up more of that dot? Like, were you thinking like, hey, investing with Web3 and crypto, or was it more of like, hey, wait a second, I can lean into this as a rapper as well? How did that kind of all come to life for you?
Man, that's a good question. I didn't expect I didn't expect the reaction I've gotten over the past year, for sure. I definitely saw potential to be making content and be doing stuff full time, but I didn't really expect it to pick up this quickly, I can say, and like I said, I lost my job in 2020, but through 2021, I was freelancing and doing random, marketing, work from home stuff. Uh, but even when I sold the album in August, and even at that point, I was still working. I was working freelance, and it was only after it sold out and I started to kind of understand, like, oh, this is a case study. This is historic. Nobody's really done this before. That was when I started to realize, like, okay, I have an opportunity here and a responsibility where I should really be looking to be full-time Web3, because that's probably the best way that I can drive value back to my collectors.
Nice. I like that, like, kind of like connection point, right? And I wanted to bring up, kudos on the website too. We'll put all the links in the show notes. But I love, from we had Sammy was on the podcast, and I know Sammy blew a lot of people's minds just on how much money he was making off of all of the time putting into Spotify streams, and then with his original collection, the Digital Hearts collection, it being like the one that all of a sudden was like, wait a second, I can make more money selling out this collection than I did, years upon years with the Spotify streams. But I think what I found was I got a lot of people in our, our listener base that was like, but what does that look like for utility beyond kind of just the singular album or the music? And the first album that I bought as an NFT was Timberland's album, or the single that he put out. And he's from 757, where I grew up, and I actually graduated high school with his younger brother. And so I mean, to me, the idea that I had the rights to play his music in my podcast was like that was an aha moment for me in the music NFT space. Could you talk a little bit about your utility roadmap with what you've done? Because I think this connects the dots in some ways for people seeing beyond like a singular single, or even just beyond an album, and kind of connecting, kind of bigger dots for your, those that are collecting your NFTs.
Yeah, for sure. So, like, on the website, you see here at the very top, there's that, it starts with the I'm Spottie Genesis collection. That's the album that I sold in August, right? So with that album, each NFT is a song from the album, or a very rare remix of a song from the album. And so if you own any of those NFTs, the song that your NFT represents, you have a copyright license to that song. So like you said, you could use it in your podcast, your film, TV show, advertisement, whatever. You could even sub-license it to a third party, and they could pay you to use my song in their content or their advertisement, etc. So that's one piece of utility. With the first album, we also gave a vinyl record. So you can go and you can still redeem that vinyl record if you haven't, at my Shopify store. We do some democratic voting occasionally, where I'll ask a question in the Discord, ask, like, who would you like to see me collab with? Where would you like to see me perform? Things of that nature. And then, of course, we do access to exclusive events, whether it's IRL events. We did some fun stuff at NFT.NYC. We had a show, a party, open bar at City Winery, where, you know, if you owned one of my NFTs, that was your ticket through the door. And we'll definitely do more of that, both IRL and in the digital world. What you're
I
looking
love
at
it.
here. So this roadmap is really talking about what I'm working on this year, which is the new album. There's been basically one NFT drop so far. That's the all-time high drop that you see right under the I'm Spottie Genesis collection. And the second drop, which is full set, that's coming out toward the end of the month, either the very end of this month or the first week of August. And both of those are free claims if you own the Genesis NFT. So if you own the Genesis NFT, it's free for you to claim. In fact, if you own the all-time high NFT and you don't own I'm Spottie Genesis NFT, you'll still get the full set one for free. Then there's going to be 3 more drops before the end of the year. So those are the 5 singles off the new album. If you collect one of each of the 5, then you'll have the option to either trade in the full set of all 5 for the special edition of the album NFT, or you'll be able to just hold it and get the regular standard version. So basically, we're doing 5 drops for 5 different singles for the new album. And if you collect them all, you'll get the vinyl record and have a bunch of cool utilities that go along with the new album.
Yeah, I love it. I love that, and we'll put the link out there for, our listeners, just from, just even the website design. I think really, kudos to, just the flow. It makes a lot of sense, right? And I think the roadmap makes sense. I also love the kind of taking people, on the journey with you, right? Like that's something that I think you've done really well. You're also, extremely active on social in Twitter Spaces, kind of across the landscape. I'm curious, for those that are listening, we either have, either a musician that's listening, maybe the musician in their house, their spouse, their kids. What are some of the mistakes that you're seeing either musicians make or not like thinking about when they're kind of thinking about stepping into this NFT space?
Man, that's a great question. At least 2 things come to mind right away. The first thing is, well, I'm going to show my bias because I'm not a big fan of a lot of the music NFT platforms that are out there. I feel like most musicians, you might as well just use Manifold and mint on your own custom contract. If you're not familiar with Manifold, check them out, Manifold.XYZ. Check them out on Twitter, check them out online. They allow you to create your own NFTs, your own custom contract. No middleman, nobody else owns the custom contract. You own it. And that's something that's very powerful that I think is overlooked by a lot of creators and especially a lot of music NFT creators right now. Most NFT musicians, they're really hoping that they'll be able to apply to some sort of curated, exclusive NFT platform and music NFT platform and get accepted, so that they can be on their website and get their audience to come buy their NFT. And I understand why, but I'm not a huge fan of it. I feel like you need to build your own audience. You need to be self-sufficient. You need to be independent and autonomous, because a lot of these music NFT platforms, who knows how much longevity they'll actually have. And at the end of the day, they're not really doing much that's very innovative, most of them. So really, there's no sense in you being subjected to their curation process and their application process. So that's my little spiel about, you could do it on your own. You don't need to go through a platform. You could use Manifold. The other thing I would say is, sometimes I see music NFT creators, they're kind of pricing out their audience. Right now, especially, like, the price of ETH, even though it's gone up a lot in the past couple of weeks, it's still less than half of what it was a few months ago. So you have a lot of collectors that, they had a lot of disposable ETH that they could spend on NFTs a while back, and now they don't have as much. So I'm a big fan of, like, set your price low. However many NFTs you're thinking to mint fewer. However much you're thinking to charge less, because at the end of the day, I promise you, the best thing you can do is make sure that the people that believe in you from the beginning, make sure that they feel like they got in at a great entry point, at a great price. That's going to make the energy amongst your collectors stay at a high vibration and just a lot of enthusiasm. If you price your NFT very high, number one, it's tough to sell NFTs right now with the price of ETH being what it is. Number two, if you do sell out, or when you do sell out, it's hard to make sure that those prices stay where they were, and if the price drops, all of a sudden the energy amongst your collectors, you're going to see a shift. So that's probably the best advice that I received last year when I was doing my drop and preparing for my drop. And especially now in the market climate that we're in, I think it's a big deal. Like the drop that you mentioned, the Ape Tape drop, that was a free mint it was almost a free mint. It was like 0.000001 ETH or something like that. So it would literally cost pennies to mint that drop, because I just wanted to build a relationship with new collectors. I wanted to find some new people to collect my music, and with the market conditions being what they were, it just made sense for me to do it as basically a free mint.
Yeah, and I'll throw that, like, for our project, we're buying an NFT every day, but the parameters I put around it was that it needs to be in the mint phase pre-reveal. And so, I wanted to include your, a collection in our collection, not knowing what was upcoming. And so for me, look at that as an entry point, right? The fact that you dropped it as almost a free mint, we were able to add it to our collection. Our entire community is aware of it. It's, we're holding it, so selling it as one mosaic on November 11th. So whoever buys that on November 11th will have that as part of the collection. And, the fact that you were able to drop it at that, rate also, kind of brought it into our collection. And the other part that you said that I think is really important for those listening, like, a lot of people that if you're looking like to hire an agency, or you're going to someone asking them to create the smart contract for you, you don't realize that they're actually just going and using Manifold, and then they're charging you for their creation of actually just going through and minting it through that process. So I love that advice. Both sides of that, I think, are really, kind of key. And I love where you're kind of taking that. I'm curious, you mentioned earlier your collaboration, and you have some collaborations with some other NFT artists. I know Art Chick, who we've given lots of love to here as big Crypto Chicks fans and big Fame Ladies squad fans. We actually have had pretty much almost the whole team of Fame Ladies here on the podcast as well. How do you look at collaborations in this space, both as an NFT collector as well as kind of as a new musician in this space? Can you talk a little bit about your approach to collaborations?
Yeah, I mean, for me, this album that I'm working on right now, it's a collab album. So pretty much every song is a collaboration of some type. And for me as a musician, I think it's a really powerful opportunity, because I think music has a real advantage compared to other art forms as we try to take NFTs to the mainstream and introduce Web3 to popular culture. Music is culture, and music is also really educational, especially hip hop, and lyrical content is one of the best ways, to me, that you could provoke curiosity in people and get people wondering, like, what is this about? What are they talking about? So for me, I'm approaching collaboration as, of course, I'm trying to work with Web3 artists, but I'm also trying to work with mainstream artists so that I can expose what I'm doing to new audiences. I did a song with Bun B, and that was very powerful, because all of a sudden, he has a different audience than me. He has an older audience slightly. He also has, like, an audience that is much bigger than mine, but they might not all be, and they're definitely not all Web3 participants. They don't all have MetaMask wallets, but he wanted to expose what I'm doing to help educate his audience, And for me, it's one hand washes the other. Of course, there's a benefit to me being in front of his larger audience. And that's really like a great case study to me of what I want this album to represent that I'm doing right now. I announced at NFT.NYC, or at Ape Fest, I announced I have a new song with Jim Jones that's coming out soon. And I've got some other fun collabs up my sleeve I'm not quite ready to announce just yet. But that's really the way I'm looking at collaboration, as a way to introduce my audience to, mainstream artists, and introduce myself to mainstream audiences.
Yeah, and for those that think about YouTube, right? YouTube creators were the masters of this, right? As YouTube was growing, they collabed with others, and it's that shared audience, right? You have some overlap, but bringing those worlds together, and it's a cross pollination, right? Like there's something beneficial on both sides. I'm curious. My full time gig is a professional speaker, so I speak at events full time. Web3 reminded me a lot of early social media days where a lot of events didn't pay speakers, right? There was the idea of like, hey, we're giving you exposure, we're putting you on stage. Web3 has kind of had that same kind of approach where, not only are everyone want to be on the stages, but a lot of events are kind of figuring out their world. I'm curious for you as a musician, as an MC as well, how has that been for you? Have you been able to kind of figure out ways that not only are they going to pay you, but there's going to be a mutual benefit to that? And like, if what would be your advice to some of the events that are out there? Because for me, I think this is a massive disservice to the space and the talents and the creatives that exist here if we're not valuing them for their offline talent. I was there at NFT VIP event where you were emceeing that event at NFT.NYC, and for me, like, one of my first thoughts was, I sure as hell hope they're paying him to be there, or they're taking care of him for whatever that value has been. How has your experience been, and what is your thoughts on that?
Man, bro, you're touching a nerve right now. Okay, so I have a lot of thoughts on this. Number one, a lot of these NFT events and conferences are completely full of shit. I'm gonna tell you that right now.
Bruce.
A lot of them, they'll tell you, man. Anytime first of all, you see so many events telling you like, oh, this is gonna be the biggest NFT conference, the biggest NFT music, this or that. We're gonna sell X number of thousands of tickets for X number of hundreds of dollars, and we got all these sponsors, and we got this or that. And then as soon as you say, okay, great, talk to my booking agent, or here's my fee, they get real tight all of a sudden. So it's very funny. And then a lot of them, I notice they'll promise the world, oh, we got this amazing venue, we got this incredible location, we got all these speakers coming, and then a month before the conference, they announce that they're rescheduling, and it's just crazy to me. It's like what? It's hard to separate the fact from the fiction. So I'm at a point now where it's like, I would love to speak at almost any event. But it really has to be paired with somebody booking me to perform as a paid performer, because there's no way in hell that I can allow my calendar to block dates on my calendar without that deposit hitting my account, so really, yeah. Now there was a time looking back, even let's say 8 or 9 months ago at NFT.NYC last year, late October, early November, I couldn't book a gig. Now, mind you, I had already sold out my album. I had made history in August. I won the music award at the official first ever NFT.NYC awards that week. And even though I was nominated leading up to it, I couldn't get any gigs, right? I played a free show on top of a bus, on top of a short school bus with a bootleg PA system on the rooftop of it. And we just drove around New York City crashing parties and making some noise. But those days are gone. Those days are over. And now it's like, I get a lot of inquiries. I just tell them, hey, I'm going to CC my booking agent. He'll let you know what the deal is, because I just don't have time for it anymore. If it's not, if they're not supporting an artist like myself, like, and helping them, helping an artist like myself get a paid gig out of coming out to your event, then what the hell are you actually doing in Web3? Because Web3 really should be about supporting the creators. And otherwise, I don't understand where all your sponsorship money is going. And I'll tune in from the sidelines and hear about it afterwards.
Preach. And I know my speaker agent is fist pumping to that as well, right? And I will say, like, for anyone that's running an event, right, and you're like, hey, I don't have the budget, I haven't thought of that. Those sponsors that you're bringing in, connecting those worlds, right? Like, have a sponsor say, hey, I would love you to sponsor the Spottie WiFi after party. You pay for him to get there. Not only will he do that after party, but he'll speak during that day. All of a sudden, the creator is valued. It's not coming out of you as the event host, pocket, and the sponsor's involved. It's what I've done in speaking in many cases. When someone comes to us and says, "Hey, we don't have the budget," I'm like, "Well, you don't have the budget today, but who of your sponsors would love to have my name on the marquee or have me stand at their booth, right, and do some of those things?" And so, Spottie, you're directly on. I actually went off in a space about this probably like 5 days ago, and someone came up and they're like, "Man, you need to talk to Spottie. Spottie's he's kind of fired up about this topic as well." So I kind of had it a little seated. I knew that you were and I were aligned there, but I will say this as well, right? When we think about Web3 and valuing, the digital ownership, that's IRL as well, right? And when it comes to like that value, maybe you're the one that goes and sweeps the floor and buys 400 of the NFTs off the floor and gives them away to your attendees, right? There's creative ways we can do that, right? But it's a matter of like, hey, we can't say people are paying for the front door, people are paying for drinks, people are paying to hotel and airfare to attend your event, and yet the people that are going there to attend, you're like, oh, here's a free ticket to attend. You can, get exposure. Because I don't know about you, no crypto wallet and no bank account has ever taken exposure as a payment today. And until that happens, I don't think we need to worry about that.
No, that's exactly right. I love what you said about there's other creative ways to incentivize an artist or a creator to come out. Most of these artists that are speaking at an NFT conference, or that you would want to speak at an NFT conference, they have NFT collections that you could support with your wallet, and they have NFT collectors that you could support, give my token holders free entry, to your event, to your conference, et cetera, et cetera. But it's just, to me, it's just a testament to how early we are, where most of the events, there are exceptions, but most of the events are thrown by people that are not very experienced at throwing in events. And they're also thrown by people that aren't super experienced in Web3 or NFTs. Yep. So it's kind of a perfect storm of I'm not going to use, I shouldn't even finish that sentence. It's just a perfect storm of opportunity, I guess, is the way to make the glass half full. And I'm definitely very vocal about it. And I told people earlier this year, I said, because I had different people hitting me up. Oh, we're going to do this event. We're going to do that event in the summer. I told them, you should book me now. Do not wait until after New York, because I knew I was going to be playing Ape Fest, and I knew, knew that was going to be a big deal, like how the conversation before I opened for Lil Wayne and Eminem and Snoopdog at Ape Fest, that was a very different conversation than the conversations I'm having today. I couldn't tell people what was going to happen months ago or weeks ago, but now it's like, look, I can't come to your conference. I definitely can't block the dates that you're talking about, some prime time date in the summer of 2022, and you want me to block the date before a deposit hits my account. That's crazy talk.
I couldn't agree more, my friend. And I just want to spell out that timeline real quick for our listeners, right? The idea, you went all in way back in April, right? Bought the CryptoPunk in February, all in April, made the record, the historic drop in August. Yet I saw you and the bus and the PA system there in New York. That's where this podcast, the origin came from. And 5 days later, we launched the Daily Show. And I will tell you from there, right? From the standpoint of on a bus, not getting bookings, to your opening up with, Eminem and Snoop and Lil Wayne, part of that is, people can look at that and be like, hey, it was all in, he got a CryptoPunk, he's a musician. But I will just tell you, like, from the outside in, and you and I, just getting to know each other now, but I've respected your hustle, your commitment to this space, the things that you've done in collaboration with other people, other projects. You're also not one that's going to hold back when things need to be said in this space. And, that leadership has also been one of those things that kind of, piles on, because I'll tell you, in December, I had a group of people approach me and they said, Fanzo, I think we can just host an NFT event We don't know anything about NFTs yet, but we can just gonna bring a bunch of people in and we'll we'll circumvent the whole system, and all of a sudden we'll be like the trusted resource. And like my skin crawled, right? It was like, you've got to be kidding me. And I will tell you, like, you've put in the time, you've put in the work, and not only on top of that, you also are demonstrating it for. I mean, Snoopdog, came out and said, hey. He reached out to you saying, hey, how should I bring my music to life in Web3? And I think that's a testament not only to your commitment to the space, but the leadership. So I hope people look at that, not only value what you can do online and at these events, but I will also say, as we push forward, and if you're listening to this, we have to think of this as a collective group. Every person that's going there and not demanding their worth is not only hurting themselves, they're hurting everyone else around them, right? And we've seen that happen in Web 2 for far too long. And so we do have to think about this as a collective value. And I'll tell you, Spottie, the thing that I always tell people is that I don't ever speak for free. Sometimes I'll speak for no fee. And that's because they can stack some things up there that I consider value as far as other things they can add on. But this idea of speaking for free, sharing, singing for free, being entertainment for free, even performing, doing your art for free, we have to stop that trend, and we can do that as Web3 creators and be kind of the leaders there. And I commend you on the leadership you've kind of shared throughout this journey. And I believe that everyone should be ponying up and locking you in on their calendar. That's for sure.
Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate it. I've sometimes I see myself as like a protector of this space, because music is I'm just thinking about the music industry specifically. The legacy music industry is so shady. It's so shady. So many middlemen. You got the artist managers, business managers, the booking agents, the record labels, the publishers, and they're all taking a cut. They're slicing up the pie that the artist bakes and giving the artist the last slice and the smallest slice most of the time. So I'm very passionate about this. I've been outspoken about a lot of different things before. There's been collections that came saying, oh, we're supporting the artists and we're going to do this or that. And I look under the hood and I look at their deck, and it's like the math doesn't add up, and I'll call them out, and I'll be outspoken about it. And believe it or not, I'll get flack from not only the creator of that collection, but other artists that haven't done their due diligence, and then 3 months later, 4 months later, they didn't get paid what they thought they were going to get paid. And they come back and they're like, hey, you know what? Spottie was right about this or that. And I'm not saying I'm always right, but like, I can't think of really too many times where I was calling out something that I said was bullshit, and it turned out that I was wrong. So it's not from a place of antagonism or anything like that. It's just like you said, we are building this new paradigm, every day. So if we don't have people that are happy to step up and say, like, this doesn't look right to me, or this doesn't smell right to me, then there's nothing that'll stop Web3 from condoning the same sort of principles that screwed over the artists in Web 2.
Amen. Amen, my friend. And I will tell for our listeners too, we have to be very careful with our vernacular, right? There's a difference between FUD and holding people accountable. And we can't make the two of them the same. And we really have to, kind of own that fact, right? And I feel that sometimes people will kind of loop one in. And just because, we're holding someone accountable and there's people's, bags attached to that, does not mean we need to cow down or away from that. And there's also the element of we also have to recognize that the FUD part we have to kind of prevent that. We have to do our best not to do that. We also have to recognize that's going to exist. It's existed since the beginning of time, of people, talking bad about either something they don't have or something that they have and they don't like where it's going. So I love that you kind of brought that up. I also think, one of the things is, we talk a lot about, doing your own damn research. Right now, do your research, I think, of our listeners, for the people that are still here, putting in the work, that are showing up, inspiring, motivating, being the support system for other creators in this space. There are a lot of people that you might have thought were people that who you should look up to, and there's a reason that they disappeared the last couple of months, because they weren't in it for the what we're all talking about, this kind of long run and big picture. So I love that piece, Spottie. I'm gonna let you get on your way. I have one last question for you, just in a sense, you mentioned you went through the last crypto run where things went down, and then thanks to your kind of commitment, your staying on the grind, it actually afforded you the opportunity to get a CryptoPunk, right? It opened up the avenues that allowed that to happen. For those that are like kind of frustrated creators now that are listening, or those that are going through their very first kind of bear market, what's your advice or tips or thoughts that you could share with them to kind of keep them, keep them keeping on?
Well, the advice I got from a good friend during and after the 2017 crash was, you don't lose any money until you sell. So if you bought some crypto or you bought some NFTs and then they crashed, um, you know, the way you really make sure you lose is if you sell. Now, obviously, that's not a one size fits all piece of advice, because there are things like rugs, there's things like Luna, and a lot of people didn't see that coming, and that's hard to say you don't lose until you sell, because some of those things aren't coming back. But ultimately, I think this is a great time to be studying, researching, learning. If you're a creator, especially, it's a great time to be building relationships. Build relationships with other artists, build relationships with other collectors, become a collector. Like, that's one of the, you asked me for advice for artists, and I forgot to say that. I always tell artists, become a collector first. You have to learn the motivations of collectors, and also the hurdles of the user experience of a collector. You have to learn that before you can really say, like, I know what a collector is going to want. And so, those are just some pieces of advice. And the other thing I would say, which, some people are going to hear this and they're going to say, well, too late. But just don't put more money into anything like this, like in the crypto sphere or in the NFT sphere. Don't put more money in than you're prepared to lose. And I've made that mistake. I made that mistake in 2017, and it made 2018 and 2019 very rough psychologically, But if you're playing with money that you say, you know what, this money is tuition money for me to learn about crypto and NFTs, then I think you're in a much healthier position than if you're saying, I'm going to take this money that I have saved for my future and for, my rent money and whatever, and I'm going to try to flip it and double it because my friend did it last year. That's two very different paths, and one is a lot riskier than the other.
I love it. And, actually early on, one of the first couple episodes I did a whole episode on, like, I refuse to work with anyone that wants to be an NFT creator until they are first an NFT collector. I feel that right on with you, right? The nuances, the feeling, the aha, the mint experience, the reveal experience, sometimes the rug experience, right? That whole thing is a kind of a welcoming approach that allows you to be an NFT creator that can set yourself up to success. And I will say the last piece I just thought you killed perfectly there was that, we heard that advice a lot when ETH was at $4,200. It was like, don't spend money you can't afford. Well, the time we actually hear that is when ETH is where it's been at, right? Where all of a sudden it bottoms out. We're like, oh my goodness, I should have heeded that advice. And so I think the other thing for all those that are listening is, like, take note of the feelings and the things you're dealing with right now, so that as we ride back up on this roller coaster, you don't make the same mistakes back, because there will be a downside on the back of that as well. And so, Spottie, I mean, I really appreciate you spending the time. I know you've been hustling the podcast circuit. You've been killing. You have the new album, the new single coming out later the end of the month or beginning of the year of August. I'm going to share that out with all of our listeners. If you're in our Discord, you'll be aware of that as we go as well. But yeah, I just want to say thanks so much for jumping on, and I really appreciate you spending the time with our audience.
Hey man, the pleasure is all mine. It was a great interview. We touched on a lot of topics that usually don't come up in a lot of these interviews. So thank you, man. I appreciate your time and your thoughtfulness, and we'll have to do it again sometime.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. Well, thank you. That means a lot to me. And I will say for all those listeners too, right? I'm a big believer in pressing the damn button and putting your money where your mouth is. And if you love what Spottie's saying and you love the leadership he's having, right now. He's got NFTs on OpenSea. We're going to have them in the show notes. Jump over there, jump off that floor. I mean, they are not only are they affordable, you get music, you get entry into the utility that he's providing. Let's support each other. Let's support the great people that are putting in the work, not just those that are trying to make that quick buck. And I'm excited to not only come on that journey, but I'm going to back that up as well. I'm going to make sure I have one of those Genesis so that I get that upcoming airdrop. So for everyone that's out there, as always, make it a great day, and we will talk to you tomorrow. Cheers, everybody.
Peace.